not a tool to be broken, not something that doesn't work, but a human meant to experience and to feel. You're not a spare piece that doesn't quite fit the puzzle, no matter how out of place you might feel. You're not someone that just isn't right in a world of people that is. So all these feelings of shallowness, darkness, that sense of anxiety that sends you helter-skelter, spiraling thoughts and ruminating ideas, that deep feeling of wrongness, of not fitting in. There's nothing wrong with any of that. Another quote that might come to mind is, "It is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society," by, I believe it was Jiddu Krishnamurti, an Indian writer and orator. Spiritual guy. Don't know much about him, but I've heard that quote somewhere. Forgive me while I adjust. Try to get this going. There are so many intense emotions and experiences that we just disregard because we're told to. These feelings of collapse, of quite literal life-changing events where you look at yourself, others, and the world differently, where you are no longer who you thought you were, or things aren't the way you thought them to be, or felt them to be, or seemed to be. You get the idea. Feelings of disintegration, which, if I was smart, I would have had it right here, ties into something that I've been pondering a lot. Kazimierz Dąbrowski's theory of positive disintegration. Forgive any incorrect Polish, I don't happen to speak the language. And thankfully, this beautiful piece of work is written in English, a language that I can understand, because it is a brilliant study and approach to psychology, life, mental health, personality, development, and general everything, actually, I think is a good way to put it. It's well-rounded. It's encompassing. And so today, and over the next couple of videos, maybe just two, I'm going to try and split this up, because it's something that you should read. That's the main thing I recommend. Read the book, get your own sense of opinion. But I also want to try and explain some of the concepts with enough depth and clarity without dragging this on for too long, because it might take a while. So what if I told you that those negative emotions that sometimes we're not even taught to acknowledge, to feel, those feelings of not fitting in, the things that you judge about yourself and hate about yourself and you feel shame and guilt, all of those things could be just as, if not more important to your development as a person than everything we're taught to have. I don't think you'd be surprised if I told you that the world as it stands in contemporary society is one-sided. You've all heard the general, go to school, go to college or to university, get a degree, get a job, get a career, have a family, work, settle down, retire, die. Yay. You're familiar with the general stick. You're familiar with the fact that this is being challenged a lot, which I think is a good thing. But the systems in place are generalized for so many complex, unique, and beautiful people. such as yourself and everyone else out there, that we have not encouraged enough authenticity, autonomy, and genuine pursuits. We have not taught people, educated them, that their emotions, the ways that they feel, and the ways that they interact with the world, unique to them, but also that can be found in others. It's a beautiful thing that must be explored. A main reason why this approach is encompassing is because it has its roots in biological, environmental factors, and something called the third factor, which we'll get into. So, Dąbrowski was, as a general overview of him, because he helps Polish psychiatrist, grew up through both world wars, experienced great tragedy and suffering. He witnessed the deaths of soldiers near his village where he grew up. He lost his best friend to suicide at the age of 17, I believe. And he had questions of why people experience in some ways, why people process in some ways, why some people choose to take their lives and others can die happy. And all of these questions that hound us, but we're told to pretend they're not there. So he did what a person interested in that would do, and he studied it. And he found some things. I think first we'll talk about the biology. The inherent factors that shape the way someone experiences the world. Now, this theory is on gifted education. He is well known in the fields of gifted education and counselling because it focuses on high levels of personality development. And it is of his belief that personality is not something you have, but something acquired, attained. It is the pinnacle of your life. You don't have a personality. You earn one. You make one through strife and suffering and joy and jubilation. And he would say that most people don't have a personality, which is quite funny and quite apt. Now, on the inherent ways that we experience, you have the concepts of over-excitabilities. Quite literally, an over-excitable nervous system. That feeling of buzzing with energy, of being alive, of feeling that fire and passion and being so engaged in what you do that it's easy. It demands something, but God, do you love it? And he had this manifested in 5 ways, he noticed, through studies in children from both regular education and gifted institutes. So we'll call them OEs just for short. And so you have psychomotor, sensual, intellectual, emotional, and imaginational. Another reason why this theory is, I believe, is revelationary and should be more well known is because he was one of the first people to give weight to emotion when it comes to development. Emotions were more important than the intellect when it comes to growing as a person and being a good person in general, and also important to being intelligent as well. And this was in like the 30s, where emotions weren't even considered by many psychologists, psychiatrists, etc. And so it was, what are you doing? You're silly, don't do that. And then, as most genius are, most of their works are appreciated post-mortem. So this concept of overexcitability is, as I described, difficult to express in words because it manifests uniquely in individuals. There are certain measures. He had the word eludes me, but a general, some sort of electrogram, some sort of quantifiable measure of the activity of the excitement of the nervous system, as well as verbal and autobiographical responses. So in interviews and in journals and questions. And certain questions that come to mind, it's just, what gets your mind going? When was the last time you felt deeply about something? Do you have a lot of energy naturally? Is there something that you love to, in a central manner? What's your favorite thing to do? What brings you the most pleasure? What brings you the most sorrow? Do you think much? Do you think about thinking? Are you spiritual? All of these things that tie into deep profoundness of experience, which we're used to in terms of, like I said, thinking, feeling. The main three, the big three, are the intellectual, the emotional, and the imaginational. So that ability to think deeply, to intellectualize and compartmentalize and plan and figure out and abstract and take an objective stance and look at things from a detached point of view and all of that stuff. But equally, the ability to be embodied, to feel, to experience, to go through the sways and shocks of life to your core and let it move you, to empathize with someone else, to know that they are hurting and to feel that. Also imaginational, which for me, because mostly don't have anything in my reach to grab, but never mind, I love yin. This was the first of his book I read actually, which I will go over in a different time, but The Earth as a Soul. And Jung's psychology, if you've heard of him, is very based on the psyche, the imagination, the unconscious, and something else I will go into. And so this concept of imagination, of overexcitability, of daydreaming and fantasizing, and having beautiful visions and ideas, not just visually, but musically, perhaps, with melodies and resonance and harmonies and dissonance, verbally, writing. All of my numerous fantasy books I have littered around because they're great. Being a poet, being an author, being a sculptor, a painter, a craftsman, something that demands creativity, which is fundamental to life, demands imagination. As a little side note, you are not your imagination, and everything that you imagine exists somewhere. It's a different topic. So we had these inherent traits of a person that they were likely to react more than the individual to certain stimuli. And that's why, perhaps in certain classes, you're restless, you can't sit still, you can't focus. It's mostly known as ADHD, as a symptom of. But before the DSM by the American Psychological Association, and before the generalization of personality disorders and psychoneuroses and psychopathology and all of these things, you were either well or you weren't. Psychoneurotic, I think, is a good way to put it. And how lucky we are to call ourselves psychoneurotic. How lucky are we to be of a certain type of nature that life does not just work for us and we do not just adapt to it, that we don't fit the mold, that we have these experiences that break us to our core, create feelings of intense grief and suffering, but at the same time can also lead to beautiful ecstasy and joy and the deepest, most heartfelt sorrow. And we are lucky to have that, because when you act in this way, when you react in this way, you question yourself more, your values, who you are, what you want. You don't just want to go to university. You don't just want to get a job and deal with it like everyone else. You don't just want to go to this class. You don't just want to fit in. You just don't want to study that. You're not an academic person. You're a very creative person who needs that thing. Or perhaps you don't fit into the regular routine of the day. You don't like waking up at 7 a.m. to go in early. You like to sleep in. You like your rest. And it comes to 2 a.m. and you're bound full of energy. We've forgotten that people are extremely complex and unique. And we try to generalize. So being of a disposition that forces that uniqueness in your face in a manner of negative emotion because it wakes us up, so to speak. That deep feeling of upset, being torn between things when you realized, it's a simple realization of something is wrong, but it's not you. Now, I'm not taking the blame out of you. I'm not putting the blame on society or people or things. I'm not trying to shift the blame. I'm trying to bring awareness that you're not broken and that you aren't in control of the things that have happened to you. As beautiful or as shattering as they may be. But we do have a responsibility now. We can make a choice. We can choose through acts of will to try and heal, to try and be ourselves, whatever that means. That's what I'm exploring. That's what this man explored. And he did a brilliant thing on it. So what moves us? Dąbrowski postulated an inner psychic milieu. Milieu? I don't speak French. Where there are forces he called dynamisms, dynamic forces, essentially, that move us. Biological. You've all heard of instinct. You're all familiar, or would be vaguely familiar with people who were advocates of instinctual drive. Sigmund Freud, Carl Jung had some, Alfred Adler had some, Reich, Horney, Skinner, Pavlov. I could keep going. You know what an instinct is. You know what a drive is. I'm hungry. I'm going to go eat. I'm tired. I'm going to bed. I want something. I associate with that want. I grab it. Instinct pops up. Drive locks in. You associate. You do the action. Just a simple machine. Automatic. Basic biological drives. The second point, social expectations. Pursue education. I don't care what you want. You're going to go get a job. You're going to settle down. You're not going to complain. You're going to deal with it. Doing things because we're expected to. Not always from our parents or our immediate environment, although that is a cause, but just the general overarching nature of society and culture. Which is strange because even though we all suffer from it, we all pretend that we don't and we continue to let it do what it does. Different conversation. I'm not going to go on a tangent here. Then, as you become conscious, as you realize things, and as your needs become frustrated, whether self-exacted or in most cases your initial scenario is from the external world, you would then experience the emotions we've spoken about before, and you would experience disintegrations. And life just pushes you down certain channels when you have no choice. And you get to a point in your life, roughly where I am now, and hopefully where you are, you might not be able to change everything, but you can do some things. And that's where the third factor comes in. Because he postulated a third. Difficult to put into words, difficult to pin down because of the way it manifests in people. But just this general internal force that when you see yourself for who you are, when you notice something is wrong, and you start to work, and you get that initial push, momentum carries itself. You now have no choice. You have no choice because you're here now. because you've done something, because you considered it, because you looked at yourself, and even for a moment you had that what if? What if I try? What if I take care of myself? What if I do things that of me, whatever that might mean, whatever I think they are at that moment, I'm going to do it. I might be wrong. I probably am. But that doesn't matter because you don't know. You won't know until you try, until you gain that experience. Only then can you understand. Through knowledge and experience, only then can you understand. And that third factor, where you start to educate yourself, perhaps you discover the self-help community. Look where I am. Perhaps you just do things that are more authentic and autonomous to you, and the momentum carries, and you have no choice. You might falter, you might stutter, you might forget and come back, but it's happened, and you're there. Now, the things that I have just explained are the first 2 to 3 levels of his 5-level personality development structure. But one thing I want to emphasize is that most people, the people you see out on the street, in school, in shops, and in Great Britain, in the pub, they won't go past level 2 or 3. That does, and I'm going to emphasize this now. If someone, let's be really egotistical here, let's assume I can reach level 5, and I meet someone at level 2 and 3. In no way, and I mean no way, shape or form, am I better or worse than them. I'm just myself, and they are them. Because it does not matter what level you can reach, it's an assumption, a hypothetical based on people. I postulate this is what scientists do. It's not a real thing. It's not an objective ladder to pin us all against and the people at the top are the very best. It's about your development as a person. If you can reach, if you max out at level 3 for whatever reason, and you reach that, then you've done what you need to do for your life and nothing else about that matters. But if you could reach level 4 or 5 and you're stuck at level 2, the discrepancy between where you are now, what is, and what could be, what ought to be, is the problem. This goes into self-actualization, self-analysis, self-things, and it's about higher levels of development, if I may use the term. And that I will save for the next video, for people who want to go that little step further. I'll go into more detail what I described here, and hopefully do it justice. Thank you for today. I know I kind of gave you a lot, so if there's something I missed, something you wish for me to go over, and I don't cover between now and the next video, please let me know. I hope to see you around.